Hello and welcome back. In this segment, we will detail the information to complete Section 3, Company Description. This is where the due diligence process begins in earnest. The underwriter or investor will require considerable documentation to verify the narrative descriptions and financial forecasts. Here, in the Company Description section, is where the transition from generalized statements leads to specific financial and operational details, along with the historical documentation to accompany the narrative statements and claims. Seller side information will be required for the present calendar year, along with 2 to 3 previous calendar years. Once we have detailed the seller side information, we will move on to the buyer side information. The buyer side information will require pro forma statements for the remainder of the current calendar year and at least 2 more full calendar years. Pro forma financial statements are the forward-looking financial forecasts which detail your business model rather than the historical business model. Pro forma means as if. Therefore, we create the forward-looking financial forecasts as if you are operating under the new business model you envision. The explainer videos for the company description are provided as Part 1, seller side information, and Part 2, buyer side information. Let's first go through the seller side information needed. This information may come from the business broker involved in the transaction, from the seller's accountant, or directly from the seller. The first part of the company description will state the company history. A story of the company's founding, growth, and reason for sale will be reiterated here. The precise company details will include registered name, registration details including state and date of registration, doing business as name if applicable, any abbreviated names that the business has used during its normal course of operations. Next, we must also mention the founders and the ownership structure of the business entity, along with amendments to the original formation of the company, such as renaming of the business or ownership change prior to the present transaction. If the selling company is a limited liability company, an LLC, the appendix will include the fictitious name registration, articles of organization, evidence of the EIN, and amendments to any of these documents, perhaps more. If the selling company is a corporation, the appendix will include the fictitious name registration, articles of incorporation, the shareholder agreement, bylaws, evidence of the EIN, and amendments to any of these documents, again, perhaps more. Next, we turn to the products and services offered for sale. If you have provided the information required for the executive summary, you may have already emailed some of this information to us. Required will be a thorough list of all products and services presently offered for sale. Pricing must also accompany the list. Turning our attention now to historical expenses, if the company being purchased is a service-based company, the historical bookkeeping records will reveal the details of the expenses related to providing the services. If the company is a reseller of items, such as a distributor, retail, or installer, the cost of goods sold is needed. The cost of goods sold is often abbreviated using the acronym COGS, pronounced COGS. These are the wholesale costs of the items being offered for sale. If the company is a manufacturer, the seller's financial documentation should provide the cost of goods manufactured. Often, this information comes from the seller's accountant. The cost of goods manufactured, often abbreviated with the acronym COGM, is comprised of direct materials cost, direct labor cost, and factory overhead. Now, we can turn to how the company describes what they sell and to whom they sell it to. The company being sold is currently engaged in sales activities. Required is having the descriptions of products and services being offered for sale. Typically, this information is part of their sales presentations, sales literature, or website. Please forward to us the product or service descriptions that the company is currently using. Next, we turn to the target market. Who specifically does the company sell to? Please explain in as much detail as possible who the target market is and why. If there is any IP, intellectual property, please detail what the IP is and the value being attributed to it. Are guarantees presently offered with the products or services? Once the company is purchased, will the current guarantees and warranties remain the same or will they change? If they will change, what changes will you make to them? Turning now to the historical financials of the selling company, are this year's sales robust or lagging? How are sales for the previous 3 years? The selling company's financial statements will be required to substantiate the narrative descriptions. There are 4 primary company financial statements, all of which will be needed. They are the profit and loss statement, often referred to as a P&L, a balance sheet, a statement of cash flows, and a statement of retained earnings. These 4 financial statements will be needed for this year, preferably to the most recent month end, and the previous 3 calendar years. Ideally, these statements will be provided to us as PDFs and as Excel files. To make the process even easier, if the seller is willing to allow us to speak to their accountant, we will obtain the necessary information directly from them. Now we will turn to the operations of the business. What is the present staffing roster and pay rates? What are the roles and responsibilities of each person? If an org chart exists, please provide it. Will the location of the business remain as it is now, or will the location be changed? If not already provided, please share why the company is being sold. Presumably, there is a listing sheet available for the sale of the business. Please email it to us. The listing information may detail how the valuation of the sale price was determined. If the rationale for the purchase price is not detailed in the listing information, please have the business broker or the seller provide it. As is usual, we have provided an attachment for you to document your answers to the questions conveyed in this explainer video. Please document your answers and provide the requested supporting data. The attachment may need to be provided to the business broker and the seller. The next video will be the buyer side information to write the company description. Thank you and see you again soon.